Welcome back everyone to the channel, and in today's video we have to talk about an amazing phenomena. We are talking about the phantom time, the stolen history. This is an introduction to the amazing works of Anatoly Fomenko, a Russian scientist and astronomer who discovered something quite troublesome in the history. That literally 1000 years of our story, of our past, is literally made up. Now, the first bit of evidence we have about this is in the missing books. We do not have any of the original writings of Plutarch, Herodotus, for example, and many other ancient writers. All that we have is copies of these particular writings. The earliest copies of these works can be traced to just one man named Joseph Justus Scaliger, who was a Jesuit. Now, this person made many edits to the history in the 1500s. These edits were justified under the auspice of basically translating dates from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. During these edits, Scaliger created 1000 years of literal phantom Christian history known as the medieval Dark Ages. Many Julian calendar dates in the old histories were recollected to the founding of Rome in 753 BC as their year 1. For example, the year 500 AD in the Julian calendar would actually be 1253 years since the founding of Rome. So 1253 years since the founding of Rome. The Roman Empire had only fallen 100 years before Scaliger actually made his edits. Instead of it being 100 years in the past, Scaliger pushed the fall of the Roman Empire back in time by 1000 years and inserted 1000 years of a phantom Christian history in order to discredit the paganism. The Eastern and the Western Roman empires actually fell about the same amount of time, but the fall of Rome and fall of Constantinople in the East were separated by 1000 years in Scaliger's new history books because he created this fake story. In the real unaltered history, when Rome fell, there was no Dark Age. Civilization went straight from the fall of Rome into the Renaissance, and much of the former empire remained pagan rather than Christian. If you look at the Renaissance paintings, there were actually more paintings of pagan themes than there were of Christian themes. There were so many paintings and statues of Venus, Apollo, Poseidon, Zeus created in the 1500s. Why is that? That's a big question. Well, that's because there were no Dark Ages. It was literally just a continuation of the Roman culture until that pagan culture was literally wiped out at a later date in the 1600s. Architecturally as well, many buildings were built in the Roman style with Roman columns and, the windows and everything, and it was just the tradition continued uninterrupted from Roman to the modern times. Scaliger, as we said at the start of the video, was a Jesuit in a time when the Jesuits had complete monopoly of all of the universities in Europe. Jesuits forced a uniform adoption of the new dates in every university with the rollout of the Gregorian calendar. The Jesuits did this to basically stamp out the paganism and pagan culture which was still quite prevalent in Europe. Around this time also began the witch trials, the Inquisition, and a number of wars related to the Reformation that killed tens of millions of pagans. This was a period of pagan genocide by effectively Christians. Part of this genocide was basically erasing the history, and the best way to destroy a people is to destroy their history and replace it with something completely fake. Just to give you one example, Sir Isaac Newton was quite a major critic of the new history which was created by the Jesuits and Joseph Scaliger, because it messed up his mathematical equations predicting solar and lunar eclipses. The eclipses no longer occurred in the predictable pattern they should have happened using Scaliger's new dates. Astronomers at the time suggested that the moon had the power to speed up and slow down to match the recorded dates of historical eclipses. This theory, of course, outraged Newton, who then went about creating the laws of motion as a way to debunk the changing speed of the moon. The moon cannot speed up and slow down. An object in motion remains in motion. One of the last papers Newton published was that stating the dates on Scaliger's history were completely wrong. This paper was ignored and buried after Newton died, so effectively they completely ignored it. To the current date, the speeding up and slowing down of the moon is just an unexplained mystery. Nobody wants to acknowledge that the dates are wrong and mathematically impossible. Newton's moon mystery remained buried until the 20th century, when Russian physicist and astronomer Anatoly Fomenko revived the case. His thesis for the impossible eclipse dates in the centuries of the phantom time were added to the calendar in the 1500s. If one restores the old Julian calendar while synchronizing the fall of Rome with the fall of Constantinople, then all of the historical eclipses actually work again. This can be proven with mathematical models using the movements of the moon and the sun as the real calendar. It is currently the late 1700s by the Julian calendar reckoning. The Roman Empire only fell 542 years ago, approximately. This was a relatively recent event, not long before Columbus sailed to America. That's right, the Roman Empire itself wasn't really an empire, but the last fragment of what was once a singular worldwide culture, stretching from the Egypt to Africa, south and all the way to the Hyperborea in the north across Siberia. So there you have it, guys, the old history, the fake history, creating 1000 years of fake history. These are the works of Anatoly Fomenko, a Russian scientist who basically is destroying the past by finding that the mathematical equations just do not make any sense, and this person is out there showcasing that once more. Most likely we have been lied to, because as always there's certain interests, certain groups of people, certain, I would say, organizations which really want to control the past so they can control the future. Remember, there's something very important about all of this, is that if you control the past, if you control the events of the past and things of the past, you can basically control what people think about what's going to happen in the future. And this is exactly what we have seen in the past. By erasing our true history, we can make up anything we want and people will believe it, especially because back in the 1500s, the Jesuits were the only really literate people, and some priests, and that's pretty much it. Some nobles, and that's done, right? Everyone else, peasants and normal people, had literally no clue about even reading. So because of that, of course, you could literally control the information and manipulate the past as much as you would literally want. So guys, that's it for today's video. As always, I shall see you later in the next one.